Hi, everybody. This is Talks with Gallagher, and I have Dr. Melodye Hilton with us today. And uh, she's been recognized throughout all ages, social, economic, educational backgrounds throughout her work in corporate and local businesses, government, non-for-profit organizations, as well as public and private educational sectors. She's an author and pioneer in areas of justice with her books, the Stop Evaluation Movement, and her voice to confront every form of prejudice and abuse of power. She has established the Voice of Justice Foundation to provide scholarships nationally, internationally for young leaders to receive training and aid in the rescue and care of orphans and children in developing nations, as well as partnering with other organizations to impact generation with hope, vision, and purpose. Wow. Yeah, Melodye, you're such an amazing woman and such an example for other emerging women leaders out there. And I'm just feel so honored for you to be on today and just to share your heart about validation and what that means to a believer, what that means to a business leader or owner. And so, yeah, I know you
I'm
bring
excited to be here. Thank you, John.
great. I know you bring such rich insight and experience in your life, and so yeah, I'm just so excited for our conversation today. And I know when we were talking beforehand, just one of the things that was brought up is validation and how validation is important in our lives and how we live our lives and how we interact with people that we love and our friends and in our inner circle and in our other sphere of influence. So if you could unpack that for us and go from there, that would be great.
Oh, just saying that word, I could just spend the whole time on that. But let me share first that there's three key words that really direct my life. One is leadership, because leadership is simply influence. It's our opportunity to use our platform, our wealth, our education, whatever we have, and it is a platform to impact others. So whether it's a parent, whether it's an educator, whether it's a business owner, whether it's a pastor, whoever it is, leadership is a powerful platform of influence. The second word is justice. And justice is power used for good. Injustice is an abuse of power, but justice is power used for good. So every leader has wealth, influence, impact, skills, whatever, that they can use to be an instrument of justice. So a pastor can use that platform of influence for the good of the people, not use the people just to promote his platform. A governmental leader can use their platform for the good of people or use people to get a platform. So it's the difference of how a leader uses their power, whether they're an instrument of justice or an instrument of injustice. And I believe the heart behind those two words is the word validation. And that is so important because when we value people, we will want to use our leadership influence for their good. And the fact is, if I devalue or I dehumanize someone, I've just given myself license to treat them like they don't even matter. So what do we see Hitler do? He had to dehumanize a race of people, multiple races of people. Anyone that was not of the Aryan race was devalued and dehumanized, which gave him the freedom in his own heart to propagate a message that literally 11 million people were killed because of his ideology of devaluation and dehumanization. And so if we as leaders, as Christians, as marketplace leaders, whatever it is, when we use our platform with a heart to value others, then we will use that platform for their good, and people can heal and our land can heal. And so from those three key words that have directed my life, I have a consulting company that I do the soft skills of business, whether it's in business, educational system, or government. I use those three words as a platform to teach and train on the soft skills of leadership. And that's what I wrote my books on. The first book I wrote for the marketplace was, it was entitled Higher Living Leadership.
Hmm.
And the byline was Influencing Society as an Instrument of Justice.
Hmm.
So I can literally impact society if I function as an instrument of justice. And then the one that went out a year and a half ago was Unmasking Prejudice, Silencing the Internal Voice of Bigotry. And that book exposed prejudice, the different types of prejudice, because prejudice is simply prejudgment. It could be prejudgment of race, of age, of gender, of socioeconomic status, of positions or platforms, where I make a prejudgment of someone because they're different than me. And so instead of having knowledge, I have bias. Instead of valuing, I devalue. Instead of honoring, I dehumanize. And so the fact is, we would come to a place where if we truly value individuals, then we can be that, once again, that instrument of justice. And so from my book, it led into what is a global movement, the hashtag Stop Devaluation movement, where I have a YouTube, a podcast channel, you know, all the different social media, all that stuff you got to do. But it's a movement of courageous voices, because the fact is, when we don't disagree, we want to immediately separate. We want to put up the walls. We want to be critical. We want to gossip. We want to slander. We want to spread rumors. We are critical. We are negative. We are fearful. All this crazy junk comes out of us because now we're not agreeing. The fact is, my goodness, I've been married for 44 years. My husband and I haven't agreed on a lot of things, but we've not let it divide us, but we've allowed it to make us better. And we've lost the art of communication. We've lost the art of being able to dialogue with someone who doesn't agree with us. So the moment we disagree, I start devaluing you, I cut you off, you know, I unfriend you or do whatever, you know, because we don't agree on the same thing. And my goodness, especially as a believer, my goodness, Jesus, think about him. He went to a corrupt governmental leader and said, hey, come down from that tree. I'm going to have lunch with you today. And so he did that. And after that lunch, that corrupt business leader, his mindset was so changed by what Jesus said. We don't know what he said to him, but he was so changed by what Jesus said that he says, listen, I'm going to restore to everyone 4 times what I took from them. That's powerful. He went to the Samaritan woman, the outcast. The one that was living with someone, had 5 other husbands and all those things. He saw that the core of her wasn't her actions, but it was her woundedness. It was her hurt. It was her rejection, because she came to draw water in the middle of the day when it was hot, because she couldn't come with the other women earlier, because she was rejected from her peers. But he came and he says, listen, I got a water that you can drink that you'll never thirst again. He went right to the core of her pain. And she became an evangelist, right? You think of the disciples, they went to go into Samaria. Do you remember that? And prepare the way for Jesus to come. And of course, they were cast out of the city and they get mad. And so what do they say to Jesus? Let's call down fire and burn them up, right? And Jesus said, you don't even know what spirit you are of. Oh my goodness. He said, man, just dust it off. Just keep on going. And so we have to learn to value people, have the courage to be a voice that will confront prejudgment, confront devaluation, confront dehumanization, confront all those things, as we have the courage to build bridges across the cultural narrative. And we will build bridges not by condemning, not by judging, not by criticizing, not thinking we know it all or we're superior than them. Here we are, Christians, you know. And it's like, no, it's carrying the heart of the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have the courage to build those bridges, people will begin to trust us. And isn't it true, when you trust someone, they can say almost anything to you?
Yeah.
But if someone is critical of you, you'll say, okay, see you later. You know, I'm going to stay away from you. People are drawn to carriers of hope, not
Yes.
people that'll judge them and condemn them. You know, we're so afraid of compromising on sin that we feel we have license to expose everyone's sin. Oh my goodness. I was a man-hating woman's liber of the 70s. I would step on others before they could step on me. I was an instrument of injustice. I was like, man, I got to get you before you get me. I was mean. I was rude. I would flirt with guys, so if they made a pass with me, I could punch them. You know, I didn't want to be equal with men. I wanted to be above them and stamp on them. But all of that was a manifestation of my woundedness, because I was sexually molested from the time I was 2 years old to 9 years old. But you know what? There was a Christian lady who showed up at my apartment, and she would not condemn me. I was an alcoholic at 21 years old. I smoked 4 packs of cigarettes, and I was super angry. I was, woman, hear me roar. Don't mess with me. I could debate anybody. And the bottom line is, she would not condemn me. And after I gave my life to the Lord, I was in Bible school, or my husband was in Bible school. I was having babies, but we were at Bible school. And I remember thinking back to that little old lady. She might have been 40 years old or something. I don't know. But she, I thought about her and how she would not condemn me. And I said, God, someday I want to be that little old lady. And now I'm that little old lady. And I get to write about it. I get to talk about it. I get to be in business and government. I get to cross the divides. I am partnering and collaborating and having beautiful relationships with people that are completely different than me. And it is bringing healing. It is building bridges. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is by genuinely valuing all of humanity. We've got to be able to separate a person from their actions. And I'll say all this because you asked one question and I didn't even let you talk, John. I mean, I'll just...
It's okay.
But in the last year and a half, it was a little over a year and a half ago, I felt the Father's heartbeat so strong inside of me. It was the heart of my daddy God, and it was breaking me. And I'm not one to cry, but I was just weeping because I felt his heart break for those who've experienced prejudice, for those who have been molested, for those who have been abused, for those who have been rejected, for those who maybe only had one parent and they were rejected by their father, or they didn't have parents. I mean, all the pain of society, I was feeling so deeply, and I was weeping and weeping before the Lord. And I had just sent my book, Unmasking Prejudice, off to the publisher. And after I had done that, I mean, I'm just crying in the presence of God. I didn't know how to navigate my feelings and my emotions and what I felt from the Father. And long story short, he said, I want you to start a movement. And I said, I don't know how to start a movement. And he said, I want you to stop devaluation. And that's all I had. I had no idea how to do it. I mean, YouTube channel. I am a baby boomer, guys. Making videos was not Melody. I had no idea what I was doing. But I had to step out there. I had to take risk. I had to learn to do things. I didn't have anyone to help me. I didn't have any money to hire anybody. All those things. But I was driven by the Father's heart. And I got to tell you, John, we could cry now. In this last year and a half or a little longer, okay, we're back.
Okay, good. At first, I'm like, oh, I hope we're good. Okay, keep going.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I forget where I was at.
You were just sharing how God spoke to you.
Yeah, and I've continued to just be driven by the Father's heart. And it's like I'm propelled, and it doesn't matter, how many likes, how many subscribers, or my contacts, or whatever it might be. But when all the things happen with George Floyd and all those things, I came into a place where it was for such a time as this. I had developed relationships for like up to 6 months prior to that to diversity and inclusion and equity specialists and strategists in different nations, within government, within businesses, within the educational system. And we were having dialogues, and I was doing my story interviews, and all these things were taking place. And then when that happened, suddenly what I had done and prepared and what had taken place suddenly had a much greater level of value to contribute to society. And in the midst of those things, it gave me credibility with different communities, but it also gave me credibility in the white community and within the Christian community. Because to be very honest, and I don't say this in a negative way, because I knew people didn't understand. But there was misunderstanding. There was confusion. There might have been a little bit of judgment on why is Melody writing these books without scriptures, without being blatantly, Christian and, and when I would hear those little things trickle down to me, I'd say, Lord, I know I've felt your heart. I know I'm being obedient to you. And I also know that they don't understand. And that's okay. So I never was offended. It never upset me. Why? Because I had the experience with my Father's heart, and he continues to lead me that way. And so it brought me into this place where people even have contacted me and they say, oh my goodness, Melody, now I know why God led you that way. Now I see that the voice that you have was for such a time as this. And so I know that this is just a beginning of bringing solutions to individual lives so they can heal first. And secondly, the healing of the land.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Wow. Dr. Melody, you said so much there that was just so a lot of nuggets, wisdom nuggets. And, something just occurred to me as you were sharing this. And that is that in your relationship with God and God validating your calling and what he was speaking to you in that season and being obedient in it, despite whatever anyone else says, whether it be in a Christian circle or not, that gave you the full confidence to know that I am validated as a woman of God in the kingdom to move forward in what God has called me to do. And then out of that, you birthed the book, you know,
Mhm.
and so Unmasking Prejudice. So I just find it very interesting that that when you came into alignment, because I believe there's probably people that
Yeah.
haven't necessarily experienced validation from God, maybe not, maybe experienced that even from their own
Mm.
biological mom or father, or maybe either had not necessarily the best validation. I mean, obviously, no parent is perfect in that
Right.
area always. I mean, they
I
do their
was one of
best.
those imperfect parents.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, but what I'm saying is that it part of the, because sometimes people feel like, when they feel like, okay, I'm going to do something for the kingdom, they first have to get all these confirmations from other people. But that's not necessarily always maybe the best. But when we get the validation from God first, and knowing that God is leading us, or leading, you in that particular position, that it's aligning you in obedience to bring that about, knowing that that's a mandated, purpose. And
Mhm.
I'm not trying to speak in kingdom Christianese terms, but I'm just trying to say
Yeah,
this
that's okay.
before people watching
This is your
that.
show, buddy.
But I just, it's just very honorable of you that you would push through with, probably even recognizing, even from the get-go, that there would be probably some misunderstandings. Because I think any
Mhm.
inventor, any prophet, anyone who is of that caliber, we look at Thomas Edison. I mean, he was, no one understood what he was doing, with inventing electricity. So when we look at birthing of innovation and birthing of a prophetic purpose and plan, I feel like what comes with that is some of that the gobbledygook, that misunderstanding, but knowing to push and press through that. So, could you just share just how you were able to just like, what were you telling yourself in the midst of that year and a half, knowing that, okay, this is something that I know is uh, for such a time as this, and I'm going to continue to press forward.
Well, I think it began 40 some years ago
Okay.
when my husband and I went into the ministry at a time when women weren't supposed to preach.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And and then this particular woman happened to be a pioneer when I had no frame of reference to know why. I always had this cutting edge to me. And
Okay.
so I would bring things into being. I saw things different. It's like I took risk. Back when drums were of the devil, I brought in a heavy metal rock band into our area. We came to an area that was extremely prejudiced. So in the first few years of us pioneering a church, we only had Black guest ministers in. Because I thought, if you got a problem with prejudice, hey, well, then we're just going to, confront it. And so there always was this pioneering edge, and there was always extreme backlash.
Hmm.
And after a few years, maybe 10 years, something like that, of constantly having backlash, I just really hit rock bottom, and I was so tired of the fight. See, one of the things the enemy wants to do is try to wear us out.
Mm-hmm.
And I got very tired of the fight, of the opposition. And I just said, God, I just don't want to do this anymore. It's just too painful.
Hmm.
So I began to go through the motions, be that nice little wife, just smile and just
Hmm.
kind of make everyone happy so they didn't leave the church and all those kind of things.
Hmm.
And uh, for 2 years, I did not feel the presence of God. I did not hear the voice of God for anyone else. For myself, I had a relationship and I could hear God for me, but I could not hear the voice of the Lord for anything external, for direction, for counseling, for investment into others, none of those things. And not, I used to lay hands on the sick and I'd feel the tangible presence of God and all those beautiful things. For 2 years, it was like dead. And at the end of 2 years, there was a minister who came through and he prayed for me. And I just fell on the floor. And when I fell down to the floor, the power of God came upon me. And the Lord spoke to me and he said, I'm restoring to you the thing you despised.
Wow.
And he didn't say this to me, but I felt, Melody, if you despise this again, you'll lose it completely. So at that moment in my life, I stood up and said, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. Everybody can leave the church if they want to leave the church. I'm not playing games anymore. It's not based upon numbers. And I mean, we went through 2 major church splits, because we're not going to compromise anymore. If you want to play church, you can play church, but we're going to obey God. And we just kept on pioneering. And when finally people adjusted to one change, there would be another change. And so because we were at one place and then we stepped into the prophetic and then we stepped into the apostolic and then, we just went through all these beautiful moves of God. And, so it was challenging, but I got a lot of practice pioneering and learning how not to be controlled by the fear of man.
Wow.
And there are 3 levels of fear that everyone just really needs to listen to this, because the first level of fear is sociological fear, which is basically the fear of man. And the Bible says that the fear of man sets a trap for us. And so we must confront the fear of man. And so often, you said earlier, I don't want to do this until I check with everybody else. Now, in the multitude of counsel,
there's wisdom.
Safety.
Yes, safety,
I need counsel, and I receive from people, and I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm teachable, and I do receive from others. That is absolutely key if we want to be successful. We have to learn, we have to grow, we have to change, we have to receive. But I cannot be controlled by the opinions of man. And if I can confront fear on the sociological level, what are they going to think of me? What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not smart enough? What if I don't preach good enough? Or, oh, that wasn't a good prophetic word. I don't want to prophesy anymore. Or, oh man, I tried so hard and I really messed it up and I don't want to speak anymore in public, or whatever it is. It's all driven by the fear of man. When God hasn't called us to fit in, he's called us to stand out. He's put something valuable and unique inside of us. And the more we try to conform to everyone around us, we will be putting a lid on the uniqueness of our identity and our value and our worth and our calling and what we've been called to pioneer and what we've been called to do. And so we must confront the fear of man. If we do not confront that, it'll go to a deeper level of fear, and that is psychological fear. And psychological fear is me now doubting myself. Wow. I know John is thinking I'm just talking too much. Maybe I am talking too much. Maybe I just need to shut up and, appear more humble. I don't want to appear like I'm arrogant. So now I've just got to, pull back because I don't want to appear. Maybe I am being too aggressive. Maybe I am. Maybe, and we, now I have self-doubt. Now, I'm struggling, with what I do and how I do it. And instead of gaining wisdom on being better at what I do, I'm just living in this self-doubt realm. And so I pull back. I just talked to a woman from another country, and she was in an environment where she was the only Black person in that field. And so she pulled back, not because anyone was critical of her, but just because she was different. She was dealing with the fear of man and began to have self-doubt. So she pulled back for years and never did what she was passionate to do. Now, 20 years later, she has re-entered that with a courage.
Wow.
So we have to deal with the fear of man, the sociological fear, so it doesn't go to the psychological fear. Now, if we stop it there, it will not go deeper. But if we don't stop it there, it goes to a core fear, a core belief about who we are. I am not good enough. I will never be a success. And I have all these lies I've begun to develop about who I am, the potential I have, and the worth that I hold. I'm not good enough. And this is where the deep comparison comes in. And everywhere I look, I compare myself with someone else. And whenever I compare myself, because I'm struggling with my own identity, one of two things will happen. I will convince myself I'm superior than them. And I find myself being critical of everyone else to exalt myself, condemning everyone else, judging everyone else, to exalt myself in my own eyes so I feel better about me. Or in that comparison, I could come to a place of devaluing myself, shaming myself, feeling inferior. And so out of that inferiority, now I allow everyone and everyone's opinion to control me.
Wow.
So I'm controlled by the fear of man. I'm controlled by those doubts because my whole identity is shattered. And so we've got to confront it on that first level.
Yes.
So every time I look at somebody and say, oh, what's John going to think? The moment I do that, and I want to respect you, I want to honor you, I want to bless you, I want to validate you, I want to celebrate you, I want to invest into you, I want to believe in you, I want to give my life to you, you know, I want to serve, I want to contribute. I love people, right?
Yes.
I want to give myself fully to people, but I'm not doing it out of pleasing man, but out of my Father's heartbeat for humanity. And if I do it from his heartbeat and a security of knowing I'm honoring my God, because that's what he put inside of me, then the courage is to give myself fully to you. Because there's only two ways of living. Either we will live taking and getting to meet our need, or we will live contributing to impact our world for good.
Wow, that's tweetable right there, everyone. Just make sure that you give credit to Dr. Melodye on that. You know, I was just thinking, you know, how do we validate ourselves in a healthy way so that we can validate others in the way that they need to be valued and validated? I mean, I'm thinking, you know, it starts with us first,
Yes.
to validate our first in order to validate others in a healthy way and not in any form of toxic way. And, you know, maybe consciously or subconsciously in how we were raised, maybe there was maybe some toxicity that may have, you know, swept through, or I don't know, just life circumstances or experiences or challenges, whatever that might be, maybe brought a little toxicity. So how do we detox, to value ourselves the way God desires us to value ourselves, so that we can value those around us the way that God intends?
Well, first, we have to recognize it's not what happened to us, it's what
Okay.
happened in us. And so, till I was 37 years old, being molested for those years, losing my father, I really don't remember him. I recognize his picture because throughout my life, this is your daddy, but I don't remember a daddy, and there was a void inside of me because of that. There was all this stuff inside of me, and all those things were defining me. All these things were saying, Melodye, you're not good enough. So that's what stirred the fear of man, and the sociological, psychological, and the deepest fear, which brought shame. And whenever there's shame, there is fear that I'm afraid you're going to see how messed up I am inside. So I have to put up this wall, and I have to put on an act, and I have to pretend, and all those things. And I let everything that is false define me. So the first thing I have to recognize is that everything that happened to me is not reality. Every act of injustice, every abuse of power, every ounce of bullying, every ounce of things that not just happened to me, but things that were not invested in me, that we all need to be healthy. We have to acknowledge those things and recognize that is not who we are. So easy preached, so hard practiced,
Yes.
because I have to begin to confront every lie. And I have to deal with that lie through truth. And so I love the scripture in Ephesians 1, I believe it's verses 17 and 18, where it says, I pray that the eyes of your understanding would be enlightened.
Oh, yes.
That you would know the hope of your calling and the riches of the glorious inheritance in the saints. It's like, please, John, I want you to have revelation of who you are, your inheritance, what you carry. Because when you have the light bulbs turn on, when you have revelation of that, and you see the truth about who you are, then that dismantles every lie. And so we have to recognize this is a journey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't get healed in a day. It wasn't hands laid on me and bam, it was all gone, because it's not just a spiritual thing. It is a mind thing.
There you go.
My spirit man is like perfect. It's brand new. I'm a new creature in Christ. But the fact is, my mind must be renewed. I have to rewire the instructions of my mind, the way I think, what I believe, and everything that is contrary to truth must be confronted. Everything that does not represent the word of God and the nature of my God, I must confront. And so whether people think what I do is Christian or not, the fact is, it is so kingdom.
Yes.
Because any person whose thoughts align with heaven, whether they are believers or not, they are positioning themselves to receive truth. Anytime someone's ways align with heaven, they are positioning themselves to align with how God created them.
Yes.
See, God is not the father of everyone, but he is the creator of every human being. And every human being is created in an image of God. And we know by neuroscience that our brains are wired for love and validation. Every DNA strand in our body is wired for love and validation. And so if we would recognize, I'm going to get off topic. Remember, take me back to that question.
Sure.
When we would recognize that when people do stupid things, when I do stupid things, it is because I am not believing the truth about myself, and they're not believing the truth about themselves. That's why we can value the intrinsic worth of every human being. One of my little free ebooks is called Validation's Response to Evil. How can you be a validator when you're looking evil straight in the face? It's because I've got to be able to see the intrinsic worth of a person, recognizing at any point in time that person can begin to rewrite the instructions of their brain. And it's not just something I know by science, it's something that is my experiential reality. You would not have wanted to be around Melodye Meyer at that time. You would not have wanted to be around me at that time. Because I was doing unjust things, because I was believing lies, because I was controlled by my experiential reality. And guess what? I look back and say, he who is forgiven much loveth much. I can look back and say, Father, you loved me so much that you took this messed up, angry, evil-driven person, and you loved me into health. And I gave to my life to the Lord like 17 or 19 years prior to my healing. So even as a believer, I mean, there was processes, there was good things, there was little bits of change, because the word will change us. But it took him like 17 years to bring enough truth to me so I had the courage to confront the deep core lies I believed about myself. And then I had the courage, because I've had enough encounters with his love. I had the courage to encounter, or I had the courage to confront the lies that Melodye believed. And some of my parenting practices that were really devaluing to my kids. The anger when they weren't perfect. We make the gospel so difficult when all it is loving God and loving each other.
Yeah, loving our neighbor. Yeah.
Yeah, loving our neighbor as ourselves.
As
And you know
ourself.
what?
Yeah.
Something higher.
Oh,
He
yeah.
says, I want you to love others like I've loved you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Whoa.
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 Unconditionally, right?
Who here has arrived? I haven't. And so
Yeah.
that is the plumb line right there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And
Yeah.
anything I do that does not love somebody else the way he loved me. And so when I look through the grid of the pit that I was in, who am I to judge anyone else? Even if they are doing things that are destructive to them and to society. If I don't build a bridge, if I don't risk what people think about me to hang out with a corrupt governmental leader, or that woman caught in adultery, or the Samaritans who hate people like me. Come on.
Yeah.
If I'm not willing to do that with a purity of heart, how will we have a great awakening?
Right. Yeah,
We
exactly.
gotta, awakening is to the heart of the Father. The
Yes.
awakening is to truth, not awakening people to my opinion or our religious traditions.
Right. Right.
It's it's so demonstrating the kingdom
Hmm.
that people can have an encounter with their creator.
Yeah.
So, how do we go from this wounded place? It's not what happens to me, it's what happens in me. Then secondly, is confronting the fears. We've got to confront those 3 levels of fear.
Yes.
Because if we confront fear, we have dismantled every strategy of hell in our life.
Wow.
Nothing can stand if there is not fear inside of me.
Hmm.
If I do not have the fear of man, if I take captive every thought to the obedience of Christ, rather than rehearsing and meditating on destructive things,
Hmm.
if I submit my thoughts and my ways to heaven, it will allow heaven to be made manifested in me.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's easy preached, hard practice, because
Yes.
for me, I spent 37 years rehearsing what a terrible person I was.
Hmm.
And on the outside, I didn't appear that way at all because I was a great actress.
So there was this internal chaos that was happening, even though you were putting a front on the outside because you didn't want anyone to know uh, just all of
How
this,
messed up I was.
how messed up you were. Wow. Wow.
And that was, and I was striving to be successful in ministry.
Hmm.
And I was driving the church and driving my kids and driving my husband and driving, the whole system with
Hmm.
all the business expertise I had, with all the whatever I had. And I was so pushing people because I had to see certain results to somehow validate
Hmm.
myself. So somehow I'd stop believing the lie that I was just not good enough.
Wow.
How could God love me? I
Yeah.
remember I was, what if I'm a Jezebel? What if I'm a Jezebel? I was so afraid of being a
Hmm.
Jezebel because people were calling me a Jezebel.
Hmm.
Because I'd stand up in church and I'd have a word of knowledge and somebody would come up and they'd get healed, but people were attacking me, calling me a Jezebel.
Hmm.
They didn't look that the person got healed, but women shouldn't be talking, right? And
Hmm.
so I was prophetic when it was not popular. And so, so I didn't want to be a Jezebel. Oh, I've got so many stories. It's crazy.
I'm
But
sure you do.
hey,
Wow.
see, one advantage of being old, you got a lot of stories. And but do you know what? All of our past, and I'll just throw this one
Yeah.
instead of giving more of the negative. But God promises us instead of shame, we'll have double.
Hmm.
Instead of disgrace, we will have a double inheritance. And then he says, your children will be known among the nations and your offspring among the people. So God began to reveal to me all that junk, Melody, not just what happened to you, but even the stupid things you did,
Hmm.
all the bad things you did, and all the bad attitudes, and all the lies you believed, and all the mess that you were.
Hmm.
And I'm still a work in progress. If somebody isn't, they're lying.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and so he says, I'm taking all of that
Hmm.
and I'm going to give you double inheritance.
Hmm.
Why do I have the Voice of Justice Foundation? It's because I'm confronting sex trafficking. Why do I have a passion to confront sex trafficking? Because I'm not to that level, but to confront sexual violation that cuts to the core of a person's femininity or masculinity.
Hmm. Oh, hopefully we are still on. everyone, and Melodye will come back. Let me just verify here shortly. Yep. Oh,
We're
you're back. Okay, good. All right.
So
Yes.
it was, it cuts to the core of your identity when those things happen.
Yeah.
And everything that devalued me has motivated me to stop devaluation in my world.
Yeah.
And so every experience, the devaluing of being a woman, guess what? When I got healed, I became a champion of men, not just women, men. In fact, I am connecting at this moment in my life. People, well, I'll just say it. I am connecting to more Black male millennials than any other demographic. They are Black, I am white. They are male, I am female. They are millennials, and I'm baby boomer. How does that happen? I have learned nobody cares what color I am. They don't care if I got wrinkles and I got them, they don't care if I'm old. They don't care if I'm a woman or a man. They don't care. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
If you genuinely, authentically value them, they don't care. It is not hard to build bridges.
Yes, that is
If
totally
we
correct.
major on the majors,
Yes,
and not the minor.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we focus on truly establishing the kingdom of God, it's not about Melodye. It's about those God has called me to reach. And will I get rid of my pride enough to think that I have to conform them into my image rather than empowering them to be conformed into his image?
Amen.
Is my goal to just expose my treasure or help people to uncover theirs? We've just got to, God's put a beautiful voice. And see, I think we get tripped up because our whole focus is our voice or our message or our calling, rather than his voice, his message, his calling. And when we do that, we discover. And one thing I'll learn, and I'll stop on this, but one thing I've learned at 65 years old, I look back on my life and I see from the time I was a little girl, this thread woven through my whole life story to do justice and to bring validation. It was always there. I remember in elementary school just hurting for those that were sitting in the cafeteria alone. Those that were, the ostracized. I remember I was a senior. Yeah, I was a senior in high school. And the teacher began to attack everyone that didn't believe what he was saying. I thought, hey, I got enough to graduate. I just argued with that teacher. I said, that's not true. And really what he said was not good now that I look back. But it's like, no, I got to stand up. You can't say that about people. I mean, I wasn't a believer, but when he was standing being critical of different people for different reasons, it's like, don't you say that about them. And I could go into so many illustrations.
I'm sure you could.
But woven in your DNA is a thread of calling. Ephesians 1:4. He chose you in him before the foundations of the world. So before you were ever conceived in your mother's womb, Your calling, your destiny, your voice, your purpose was woven into your DNA. Your contribution to the world was woven into your DNA. That is so powerful. So as we connect to our Creator, the Creator reveals who we really are.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we seek first the kingdom, and then all these things will be added
Unto us. Yes, yes. Amen. Well, Dr. Melodye, where can people find more about you, your website, your book? Just share with those watching if they could get connect with you further.
Well, I have the Stop Devaluation movement, and that's hashtag Stop Devaluation on my YouTube channel and my podcast channel. And then the same thing for Twitter, Instagram, all those different social networks. You can go to my website, and that's where you'll find even all those things. It is www.stopdevaluation.com. So if you just remember Stop Devaluation, you're going to find me. And you can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble to see the books. If you're into Kindle, you can get all my free ebook. Oh, they're not free on Kindle. All my ebooks, they're like $2.99. They wouldn't let me put them on for 99 cents. But if you don't care if it's Kindle, you can go on to my stopdevaluation.com, and I've got 6 free ebook downloads, and they deal with debunking cancel culture. I thought, man, I did that before it got popular. Validation's response to evil, stop self-devaluation. So a lot of those things in that answer the question you asked me. We've got to stop our own self-devaluation. Everyday justice. On the other side, and that's about life stories being rewritten. And there's one more, I can't remember it, but you can go on there and look at that through my consulting company. It's drmelodye.com, and ministry-wise, it is givinglight.org.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Melodye, for
Thank you.
Just your time today with us. Wow. It was just jam-packed of just such enriching and applicable and practical regarding validation for those watching. And thank you for leading the charge on this. That's amazing. Well, everyone, thank you for watching today. And till next time.
Thank you, John.